Before a crisis strikes, you want to be as prepared as possible. So you need to know your community, have a plan, and build relationships to be as prepared as you can. So, what's the plan, Stan? If something were to happen today, do you have a plan in place? Does your parish have a plan? Do your volunteers know the plan? When there was a mass shooting at a church with several deaths and several casualties, it made me wonder, if this were to happen at my parish, am I as prepared as I can be? If it were to happen during youth group, would my volunteers know what to do? So have you created a plan? And have you communicated what it is? Should your volunteers come to the church if something were to happen in the local community or at the schools? How would you get in contact with them? Is there one person that you can contact that will reach out to everyone else, since you very well may be swamped? Are there parishioners who are medically trained and ideally also ministry trained who can be present in the aftermath? When I was in high school and there was a tragedy, we lost several people in youth group and several more in the community. And there were loads and loads of donations, especially of food, that was just available at tables all throughout the church. And it was 2 or 3 days after the initial tragedy had happened. And one of our volunteers came up to me and asked me if I'd eaten. Seemed like a simple enough question. I turned to her and looked and said, "I'm not hungry." And she immediately got in my face and said, "I didn't ask you if you were hungry. I asked if you had eaten." And because of her being so direct like that, it kind of shook me out of my intense grief for just a moment. And I began to think, I hadn't eaten since before the tragedy had happened, 2 or 3 days earlier. And as soon as I told her, no, she immediately went back into ministry mode and said, "Okay, well, let's grab you a plate of food." Now, the reason her getting in my face like that wasn't negatively impacting me or jarring was because she was one of the volunteers with youth group. She already had a relationship with me. And what was her day job? She was a nurse. So she was looking out for us, not just as someone who loved us and wanted to pour out God's love upon us, but was also being watchful of our physical and medical needs. So make sure that you know your community, that you have a plan. Communicate that plan to your volunteers, your staff, and your church leaders, and build relationships to be as prepared as you can.